Hey everybody, Dr. Jared Skowron from Spectrum Awakening. So what I wanted to talk about today is a question that a lot of my patients will ask me, which is, my doctor said my kid should be on a medication, but I'm looking for an alternative that's not a pharmaceutical. So I thought, what a great question to kind of take to a lot of you, because a lot of parents are kind of tired of the over medications of our kids. And then you go to a doctor and you go to your pediatrician and that's their answer. Most docs, do two things. They prescribe medications or they perform surgery, and that's their wheelhouse and that's their toolbox. And sometimes we go to them and are looking for a different answer, and sometimes get disappointed with that answer. But we've got to give the doctors their due diligence that this is their toolbox. This is what they use. They use pharmaceuticals, they use surgeries, and if it's not that, why are we going to them for an answer when those aren't the answers they provide? Okay, I don't go to my barber and ask them to change the oil in my car. That's not what they do. Okay, so I wanted to kind of walk through that whole process of pharmaceutical medications, of natural things that you can use as alternatives or as adjuncts, because I think it's a great question to ask ourselves when we decide, how am I going to help my child? And obviously the question at the end of this is, what is the best way to help my kid? Period. Okay. Before we get into that, want to talk about two events that are coming up. Again, because April is Autism Awareness Month, we do a lot of fun things. Number one, the online TACA conference is coming up on April 8th. Okay, so that's only a few weeks away. April 8th is the TACA conference. It is online, digital in April, and it's going to be in person in October. So if you can't fly to California in October, then attend the online conference. You're going to see all the great, wonderful speakers. They're going to be live out in California in October. Why not watch them live from the comfort of your own home? There are certain lectures that are pre-recorded, but then there's also opportunities to talk live to the docs and to the speakers during the conference. I love TACA. I can't say enough. Sign up for the conference. We've pinned the link. Jump in and check it out. Also, I am involved in another online summit, which is not sponsored, but is run by Autism Parenting Magazine. So Autism Parenting Magazine is this online magazine. I believe it's out of UK with a lot of distribution here in the States. But they also have an online summit coming up starting next weekend, beginning of April. So if you're interested, we've also pinned that. Check out the Autism Parenting Magazine Summit. I'm one of the speakers there, and another, a lot of great speakers from across the world involved in that. So two great online opportunities for you to learn more about how to help your kids on the spectrum. Number one, the TACA online conference in 3 weeks. And then in 2 weeks, the Autism Parenting Magazine Summit. So check those things out if you are interested. All right, so let's get into the conversation of medications and natural alternatives / adjunct, okay? I think the most important thing for us to think about and conceptualize is whether a treatment for our child, and again, what happens? Hey, my child has a problem, I have a problem, and Sherry just said nice haircut. Sherry must have been online last week when I had my big bushy hair, and now I got a haircut. It's the little things, and sometimes just the little things. Anyway, I think the big question we have to ask is, our child has symptoms, our child has problems, our child has things we're concerned about, and we want those fixed. We want those improved upon. We want help for those. And so we go and try to get medical treatment. And that medical treatment can obviously be pharmaceutical, it can be natural, there's a myriad of things. I think the important point is that treatment designed to be curative and a temporary treatment, or is that treatment designed to be a Band-Aid, okay? Pharmaceutical medication, really became popular, 100 plus years ago because of its huge effect with antibiotics. Antibiotics were a huge, amazing discovery in science and medicine because we were curing people and preventing them from dying. And it was quite amazing that antibiotics are a nice short-term curative treatment. I have an infection, I give a medication for a short period of time, problem solved, medication done. Awesome, great, love it, all right? Now we're getting into a point of medication where the pharmaceutical industry has learned that it's more profitable to be band-aiding long-term than to be curative in the short term. And so now we're designing, well, not we, but now the industry is designing medications that will help you feel better and help your symptoms, but not be curative. They are a palliative fix. Okay, so for example, I'll take cholesterol medications, all right? If you eat a crappy diet and your cholesterol is super high, then there's cholesterol medications that'll lower your cholesterol and prevent a heart attack or a stroke. Okay, good thing, but if you stop the cholesterol medication, your cholesterol is going to go back right up to where it was because you didn't address the cause, which was the crappy diet. Okay, so again, a loose example of how some treatments are band-aids, still could be beneficial, but we're not really reaching the cause or the cure. And so I think that's an important, kind of rhetorical thing to think about as we're looking at medical treatment in a big picture, whether it's pharmaceutical, whether it's natural. Am I curative? Am I band-aiding? Am I palliating? And what's my eventual goal and outcome? Okay, so, and again, even natural things can be used as band-aids or as curatives. It's not like pharmaceutical is one or the other. So it's an important thing to think about. So let me kind of go through some of the typical medications that my patients are often prescribed by their doctors, and patients who come up to me and say, hey, you know what, I'm a little nervous about this. What can I do instead? Or what can I do with it? Or there are certain patients come up to me and say, my child's on these medications, but I'd like to get them off and I'd like an alternative. All right. So these are the kind of questions that you probably have with your child. I think number one, most important, if a physician has prescribed your child a medication, stay on it until you work with them to wean off of it. Some medications you can stop cold turkey, some you have to, wean off of, and that's a safe thing to do. So don't go changing your medications until you talk to your prescribing physician, number one. However, here are some alternatives or adjuncts to think about. Number one, a lot of our kids are suggested to go on psych medication, okay? Antidepressants are the most common ones that I see. Things like Prozac, things like Lexapro to help their mood and help their behavior, all right? I'm concerned about those antidepressants because there are risks in young kids of suicidal ideations, of the drugs not making you feel happier, but actually making you feel more depressed. And of course, our kids who can't communicate that well, are they going to be able to describe those things? Are they going to be able to have the emotional maturity to understand those concepts of happiness and sadness and the timing of when things have changed? So instead of a Lexapro, instead of a Prozac, what do those medications do? Those medications keep serotonin levels elevated in the brain, all right? And so let me kind of discuss serotonin. Serotonin is a medication, serotonin is a brain chemical that can help you feel happier. How is serotonin made? Serotonin is made from protein, all right? We eat protein, our brain makes serotonin. The drugs, the SSRI drugs like Prozac and Lexapro, hold that serotonin within the brain junction. So between cell to cell, it kind of holds it there so there's more activity. Alternatively, what we can do is use the protein that the brain uses to make serotonin. So what do? We use the protein tryptophan. We have it in our super serotonin support. This is the protein that your brain uses to make serotonin, okay? Now don't do both. You don't want to use an antidepressant and 5-HTP together. That can be too much serotonin. That can actually cause other problems. But we do have an alternative. Hey, should I try antidepressants, SSRI? Should I try 5-HTP? Which one will work better? Okay, pharmaceuticals are stronger than natural things. I think natural things are great to treat mild issues and to adjunct with moderate issues. But if you have a moderate to severe issues, this is where pharmaceuticals really shine, okay? They don't tend to shine as well in the mild things. I think that's where the natural things tend to do better. So we've got options. We've got options to not use together, but to try one or the other. Or if your physician is saying, hey, you should try Prozac or Lexapro, maybe we can try 5-HTP first. See how that works. If that doesn't work, we've always got a backup plan of the SSRIs. So again, think about options, think about how these different types of treatments, pharmaceutical or natural, work, but with the same end goal. That same end goal is more serotonin to elevate, to create more happiness and better mood. All right, and again, don't use 5-HTP and serotonin drugs together, and don't just pull off your Prozac or Lexapro and try 5-HTP. If you're on something, work with your physician, but if you were suggested something, it's an alternative to try beforehand. All right, next, let's get into ADHD meds. So ADHD meds are very oftenly prescribed for focus, for concentration. And what those do, those are mostly stimulants. So if you have Ritalin, you have Concerta, you have Vyvanse, you have Quillavant, those kind of treatments, those kind of medications, they're all stimulants in the brain. They work along something called the dopamine pathway, all right? More dopamine, more focus and concentration. Just like with serotonin, just like with the antidepressants. The brain chemicals are made of protein. So we know the protein that makes dopamine, you can either use the medication that stimulates those receptors or just increase your dopamine level. So we have our attention on the double supplement, attention on the double increases dopamine levels. It gives you the protein the body uses to make these, period, okay? Another example, which a lot of our kids are on, is leucovorin. Okay, now leucovorin is a pharmaceutical form of folinic acid. My concern with leucovorin is that most preparations contain gluten. And so if you want to be on a gluten-free diet, you either have to get a gluten-free preparation of leucovorin or try folinic acid on its own. Excuse me. So, I want to make sure if you are on leucovorin, an alternative to try would be folinic acid. This is our folinic acid formula. We have huge success with it because we've added other cofactors that help it cross the folate receptor and activate the folate receptor to get it across a leaky gut, to get it across a blood-brain barrier. So again, leucovorin, folinic acid, very similar things that you can utilize. Next, we've got a lot of kids who have sleep problems. We've done Facebook Lives on sleep, time and time again, because sleep can be a struggle for so many. And sleep problems can be caused by a lot of different issues. A lot of the kids that I see are on clonidine. Okay, so clonidine is going to relax the brain and, try to encourage you to sleep. One of the things that clonidine does is activate part of the brain, and again, we're back to brain chemicals, is activate a brain chemical receptor called GABA, okay? GABA is another protein that doesn't convert into a brain chemical, but actually is a brain chemical on its own. And we have receptors for GABA in our brain. So you can take a GABA supplement and bam, you've got that GABA floating around in your brain. We've got a lot of GABA in our Power and Focus supplement. I don't have that here on my desk, but again, we've got these alternatives that you can use. Also, a lot of people will try melatonin to help induce sleep. A lot of people will use our super serotonin support to maintain sleep. We also have a really great sleep cream. And our sleep cream, I use this with my daughter, and I talk, if you've watched my Facebook Live, my daughter is a hard sleeper, or a difficult sleeper. And so right now, I'm just using the sleep cream on her, boom, rub it on her back, and she usually has a decent night's sleep. So we've got these other natural things that you can try if you don't want to medicate with clonidine or some other medication to induce sleep, okay? And again, if you're on something already, don't just stop. Talk to your physician that prescribed it, because if you do want to stop, you want to make sure it's done safely, okay? Next, something that a lot of my patients are also on are on seizure meds, okay? If you've got seizures or seizure activity in the brain, you want that to go away. You don't want seizure activity in the brain because that can cause problems with the brain long term, all right? So seizure medications are very important if you do have seizures or seizure activity, all right? So if you're on seizure meds, stay on them, all right? I don't want you to just pull your seizure meds. You gotta talk to a neurologist about this. However, we can do some things adjunctively in order to, help with seizures, because seizure meds aren't the only thing that'll stop seizures. One of my favorite things, and again, going back to what we've shown before, is folinic acid. And folinic acid has some amazing research on improving seizure activity. So this is something you could do with your seizure medication. Again, I don't want you stopping your meds, but hey, I can do something adjunctively with this. I'm on Keppra, I'm on Depakote, I'm on Epidiolex, and boom, we're gonna add some folinic acid to it, all right? One of my favorite stories had a child. He was having 30 seizures a day. He was on the max dose of Keppra, and we introduced some folinic acid. He went from 30 seizures a day to 0 seizures a day with the Keppra and the folinic acid together, okay? So the important point here is adjunctive therapy can be better than one therapy alone. All right, moving on. Another common medication we see is risperidone or risperidone, okay? And that is often used for kids who are violent, okay? And what that does is it stops the activity of dopamine in the brain. We already talked about dopamine. Dopamine's for focus and engagement, but too much can cause aggression. So the risperidone or the risperidol stops the use of dopamine in the brain, okay? That calms these kids down. It also these kids can get zombified, if it's a word now, and they also can get a lot of weight gain. I mean, we're talking about like 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds of weight gain if that risperidol dose is too excessive, all right? So all of a sudden now we've got these other physical side effects that we don't really want. We don't want the aggression, but is there an alternative? This is where I like our anger management supplement. So our anger management supplement will help reduce those dopamine levels. It'll help metabolize that dopamine. And again, similar outcome to the risperidol, where there's not as much dopamine effect in the brain, but a different way to go about it. The drug acts as a bouncer in the brain between the dopamine and the receptor, where the anger management helps metabolize and remove the dopamine. Again, if you're on risperidol, don't just stop it, okay? Work with your doctor to wean it, but we've got something that we can use in the meantime as an adjunctive therapy. All right, 2 more, and then we'll get to our Q&A. I would say a lot of times we have kids who are constipated, all right? And this is probably something that many of you know. Most of the time you go to your doctor, you say, my kid's constipated, they're gonna suggest Miralax. I'm not a huge fan of Miralax. It's made of propylene glycol. That's the same thing that they have as a nanoparticle on the COVID shot. I'd rather use something different. And what do we use that's different? Well, you know what our grandparents used? They used milk of magnesia. All right, what is milk of magnesia? It's magnesium. Magnesium has been used for decades and decades and decades and decades. We know it'll loosen your stools. So why not use something that is healthy and effective rather than something that might be unhealthy and effective? I mean, this seems like a no-brainer to me. Magnesium doesn't work for everybody. However, there are other things that we can add on. We can add on mineral oil. We can encourage mitochondrial function, and that'll also help with chronic constipation as well. But again, the whole idea is I'm using a treatment here for constipation that's totally palliative, okay? I take the Miralax, my stool loosens. That's the goal. Same thing with the magnesium. I take the magnesium and my stool loosens. In addition, there's no negative effects to the magnesium, and I might even have more beneficial effects in my body by absorbing that essential mineral. All right. Last but not least will be antimicrobial treatments. This can be antibiotics. This can be antifungals. This can be antiparasites. This can be antivirals, things that we use to kill bugs. Okay. Now, in general, I'm a huge fan of these treatments, even pharmaceutically, because their goal is curative. Okay. I take my Z-Pak, my strep throat is gone. Problem over. All right. You can, of course, have side effects to those. You take antibiotics for too long, it's going to kill the good probiotics in your gut. It's going to make you at risk for other infections like C. diff or other bacterial infections, or make you at risk for candida or other yeast or mold infections or parasite infections, etc. So that's kind of the downside to antibiotics, is that you may have to fix those other problems down the line. Obviously, antibiotics have saved lives, countless lives over the years, but there are other issues that we may need to adapt to. So if you are using antibiotics, make sure you add on a probiotic. Don't give it at the same time of day, because the antibiotics will kill the probiotics. So use them separately, take them a few hours apart, but consider a probiotic. We've got one called Gut Reset, which is shelf stable, so you don't have to keep it in the freezer. You can carry it around with you. But again, that probiotic at an opposite time of the day, the antibiotic can help prevent those side effects. Also, in addition, we can add other natural antimicrobials, antibacterials, antifungals, antiparasite herbs that we can use in conjunction with the medications, okay? So a couple that we have, I'm a huge fan of grapefruit seed extract. So this is our yeast mold grapefruit seed extract with the acronym GFSE. We also have a great combination of oregano oil, ginger oil, and fennel oil in this supplement called No More Mr. Fungi. This is designed to kill off funguses. Even Erica, she's laughing at that one. She's still here. She's only here for 2 more weeks, everybody. We need a big send-off next week to say bye to Erica. She's wrapping up next week. But so many of you have talked to her and encouraged her, which is wonderful. So thank you. So again, we've got these different things that we can add on. So this is kind of just a general overview, but I wanted to open up the idea that, there's different ways to skin a cat. all right? There's different answers for the same problem. And where pharmaceuticals have such wonderful marketing, over the decades that many of us believe, hey, if I have a medical problem, pharmaceuticals are the answer, and they can be a answer. And I hope that answer is curative, because that's what we want. We want a child who's better, period. Okay? So we do need to understand, is what we're doing, whether natural pharmaceutical, is it curative in nature, or is it palliative and Band-Aid in nature? And if it is, does that Band-Aid have side effects? And is there another alternative that we can try? Okay, because you pick something natural over pharmaceutical doesn't mean you can't choose something other on another day. I talk to a lot of parents about the ADHD meds. They're getting these calls from the schools, getting the calls from the teachers. There's focus problems, there's behavior problems, and the teacher will frankly say, hey, let's put them on some Ritalin. Maybe you don't feel comfortable with that. So let's try something else. Let's try something else first, see what happens, and then, hey, you know what? If I ever want to try pharmaceutical someday, I can. But there are options. There's options to try. In fact, one of my patients, I think it was Monday, it was either Monday or last Thursday, said to me, hey, we tried your stuff, and I went to school, and the teacher called me and said, hey, did you put them on Ritalin? Because they're great now. And I love that the teacher noticed the improvements on a natural, alternative. But it also kind of makes me sad that our whole mental place is that, boy, pharmaceuticals are the answer. And it's not true. They are a answer. A answer that may work, a answer that may cause side effects, and a answer that may not work. So it's important for us as parents to look at all the options, to look at all the possibilities, and to say, here's my realm of possibilities, and I'd like to try this first, this second, this third, based on the severity of what's going on in my child. Okay, strep throat, you know what? I probably want to go antibiotics first, okay? I've got some kind of yeast infection. I could try something natural, okay? I've got seizures. Boy, I want to be on seizure meds, but I could also try some natural stuff first, all right? Behavior problems at school. If nobody's getting hurt, can I try natural things before pharmaceuticals? So many different options that can be done, and can be done safely. So what I would recommend is think about these kind of things and as options for you, things to try, things to consider, or work with a functional medicine doc, whether it's me with a telemedicine visit, whether it's with another doc, to say, and somebody who's open to alternatives. Because frankly, if you go to most conventional docs, they're going to say, hey, I was educated on drugs, here's your drug. I wasn't educated on diet. I don't learn about nutrition. I don't learn about vitamins, so I don't encourage them because I don't know much about them. But I do know about these medications. That's what you're coming here to me for. Here's that advice. Bam, we're done. So maybe you want to put together a team of different people that know these different things, and you can make the choice that's right for your child, because that